I forgot about that. I love
Good
it.
evening, good evening. Welcome to Live in Conversation. My name is Winnie Antoine. I am your co-host with my lovely co-host, attorney Daphnée Camilien. How you all doing this evening? Daphne, how are you this evening?
I am good. I'm doing well.
Amazing. So welcome back to all of you joining us live. Thank you so much for continue to be in conversation with us. Last week we did a live in conversation where attorney Daphnée Camilien was speaking about immigration questions, concern, things happening in the news, and you all had so many questions that we think it was important to do a part two. So tonight is the part two. So go ahead and share it. Come with your questions, and then attorney Daphne Camillen will definitely go ahead and answer as many as she can. So Daphne, you want to do a quick greeting before we go right into the subject?
Yeah, sorry. I was also sharing it on my phone as
Yes,
well. I
please do. Share away.
Yeah, so I just want to say, of course, good evening to everybody, and to always say that my name is Daphnée Camillion from Camillion Law. I am an attorney, however, I'm not your attorney. And anything I'm saying this evening is for information purposes only. If you have a legal question, I do advise you to go and seek out an attorney. You can also contact me for a consultation, and we can move on from there. But please note this is all for informational purposes only, and the confirmation you're talking today doesn't establish any type of attorney-client privilege or relationship.
Awesome. So with last week we had some prepared information, and then we also had questions that I had for you, and our audience also had questions as well. So maybe we can just start with maybe the welcoming message that you have for us, and then I'll go ahead and ask you a few questions. How does that sound?
Sure. You mean like what's in immigration news today, or just
Yes, exactly.
yeah? So basically, I was going to actually talk about a story that came out sometime this week. I think is when I saw it, and it was regarding a young gentleman in Boston who was out, I believe, jogging. He was African American, and I believe he was African American. I actually don't know. He was of African descent. I'll say that. And he was stopped by several officers. I guess there was two cars that pulled up and kind of cut him off. And he was stopped by a bunch of men who came out with bulletproof vests on. He believed they were law enforcement. He didn't know at first, and and they started asking him all these questions. And he saw on someone's vest that it said ICE, right? And so he realized that it was immigration. So he immediately told them he was a U.S. citizen, born in the U.S. And they were asking him all these questions, and someone started recording the incident. And in addition to that, he himself started recording. So what we have is just like a small snippet of what he was recording. And he basically was explaining to them that he wasn't a citizen. I mean, sorry, that he was a citizen. And they claimed that they were looking for someone. And at the end, they told him he was free to go. But then they were asking him to show his arm because supposedly whoever they were looking for had a tattoo or something. And they were trying to confirm. So a lot of people in Congress saw it, that especially from Massachusetts, and were calling for an investigation. There was a bit of an uproar, but it was a really scary situation considering the times we're in. This man is not someone that was undocumented or maybe someone they were actually looking for. This was not who they were looking for at all. But it was just something to consider in the times we're living in. And ICE enforcement is out there, and people who are, in maybe who are undocumented, need to have a plan. They need to know their rights, and they need to have a plan. I think everybody does. No one. I'm not going to say to walk with
Exactly.
it. to walk around with your passport or anything like that, but people who are in this situation need to, there's so many layers of this. Like one, like it could have turned so badly because he's out jogging. Would he have ID and all this other stuff on? Probably not. Anyone who's out exercising, especially if you're in your own neighborhood, probably would not have your wallet, your purse, things of that nature on you. So if he was taken, and how would he prove his identity, right? But someone who's undocumented, this just goes into like if something like that were to happen, do you have a place that has your personal belongings, that has identification, that has information that your family like would have do you have a plan? If you're taken, what happens? If you have kids, what happens to your kids? If you have a spouse, what happens to your spouse? Work, everything, like there needs to be like a plan B as to what, because things are happening all the time and enforcement is going on as we speak.
I mean, that's something important that you just said. Regardless of our immigration status or not, it is important that we have a plan for ourselves and for our family. But then going back to you were saying about him, maybe he was jogging, so therefore most likely he doesn't have his ID with him, right? So
Yeah.
what would you suggest? And I know you said maybe not having everybody to always have your passport and your documents, but then is it gonna be like a reality that people may need to be carrying the legal documents with them? I mean,
Well,
as unfortunate as that sound, do you think that's that something people should take precaution with?
I think so. When I see like a physical passport, what I would encourage people is to carry like a copy of paperwork, right? So like, and it depends. Like you were saying, regardless of your legal status, if you have a state ID, a driver's license, or even having some type of state ID, some type of ID card, something with your face and your name on it. Um, some people don't have that, right? That's really, really important. So just having that basic step. If we're talking about someone with wanting to carry and prove that they're a citizen or a green card holder or etc., whatever status they may have, if it's something that they want to do. I always say carry a copy, or if you carry the original, you need to have a copy of your paperwork somewhere else where someone knows about it, right? So it's one thing to like it has to be in a designated spot so that if anything ever did happen, it would be easy to say it's in my, second drawer in the corner in a Ziploc bag, and it can be retrieved from, for that person very easily versus not knowing where your stuff is at because we live in uncertain times right now.
As unfortunate as it is, it's really important that what you are saying, that we try to do that. So with that being said, I know in Chicago, I think maybe like a year or two ago, they
Mm-hmm.
were offering some type of ID. So it's like a Chicago ID. So
Mm-hmm.
it's not really like a state ID, but it's like a Chicago ID that people can use to identify themselves. Have you maybe heard of that before, or do you see other cities doing that as well?
I do know that Chicago had some type of program, and there may be. It usually is going to be more probably places of sanctuary cities that would have something like that. But I do tell people to, if you can get some type of ID, get the ID. You need something in general, just for yourself to be able to conduct business in general. Like I said, it's super important to have some type of something with your picture and your name on it. And it doesn't matter any, and just also just as a aside, everybody should have that. It doesn't matter if you're a citizen or not. You should, because what if your wallet gets stolen? What if something, you know what I'm saying, if something happens, it's much easier to get like a new ID, to get a new passport, to get a new, if you already know your passport number, if you already have a copy of it, if you could just present that, it makes the process go much quicker for everything. When you're trying to recreate it, if like I said, like say your wallet's stolen,
Well, that makes sense. So that was what's in the news. I'm just gonna go ahead and start asking you a few questions, and if anybody's watching right now, I kindly ask that you share this conversation. This is live in conversation with attorney Daphnée Camilien. We had a long discussion last week about immigration question and concerns, and then so we felt that it was important to continue the conversation. So if you have any questions, bring them on. And if not, Gary is saying good evening. Hello, Gary. Thank you for joining us. Appreciate you. Okay. So let me go start with my first question. I know on the title we said that 6 ways that people can, I guess, apply or get a green card. Okay. So do you want maybe to start with a explain the 6 ways, or maybe can you start by giving me an example of family-based petition? So that'll be one of the ways, correct?
Right. So,
Yeah.
yeah. So I will. How about I do the 6 ways, and then
Uh-huh.
unless you think it's, yeah, do the
Yeah,
six
yeah.
ways.
Do the 6 ways, and I'll ask you specific questions.
Okay, and then afterwards, I'll definitely give you an example of family-based petition.
Awesome, awesome.
Number one would be family-based petition, right? And that's we talked about a little bit about that last week, but that's just basically when a family member does a petition for you. So the family member has to be so we're talking about in the United States, it has to be a U.S. citizen or a person who has a green card, right? And it has to be an immediate family, so it can't be just any family. And the U.S. immigration considers immediate family is your mother, your father, your sister, your brother, your husband, your wife, your adult child, right? So not just, and that's really important because a minor child. So let's say you came to the United States, you had a child, the child's a U.S. citizen, and they're 12 years old and you're here and you want your child to file for you, they cannot. They have to be 21 years old. They have to be able to. So one of the biggest things is when you do file a petition, you do have to say that you're able to support the person, and a minor cannot do that. So that's one of the biggest reasons. But so minor children cannot file for their parents, but adult children can file for their parents. Another way and an example of like one of the most common examples for um, filing for a family-based petition is we'll give marriage, right? So somebody, and there's 2 ways. Somebody comes here, they meet someone, they come here to visit, they meet someone, they fall in love, and they get married, and then that person decides to file for them. So that's through family-based petition, and they would be able to go ahead and file for them and go ahead and go through the process. And if the person's already in the United States, they could stay here while they went through the process. If you have another situation where you have an American citizen or American green card holder, or green card holder, excuse me, and that person is in uh, they have a fiance in another country and they want to file for that person while the person's in another country, they go ahead and start the process for them, and they can go to that country and marry the person, or they can file a fiance visa and have the person come here within 90 days. If most people watch 90 Day Fiance, that's kind of like, you'll know what I'm saying. They'll have to, when they come to the US, they'll have to marry them within the first 90 days. Or if they marry the person, let's say overseas, and then they start the process, and then the person would go to the consulate. It's called consular processing. They would go to the consulate in their country. So, for example, if they're in, let's say, India, and they got married in India. The person's a citizen here. They start filing paperwork. Their Indian bride would then go to the Indian consulate and go ahead and get her interview and then get approved and then come to the U.S. and she'll get her green card when she steps her foot here. So that's family-based petition. The other one is H-1B visa. And H-1B visa, some people may have heard of it, some people may not have heard of it. And this is a little bit different. This is not your family filing for you. This is your employer filing for you. So the person, like I said, who actually is filing is actually a company. It's not an individual person. And people who get H-1B visas, this is are highly skilled people. So it's just not anyone. The employer is the person who's considered the person's sponsor, so they get this special visa for you. You come here, but they can also they're your sponsor, so they can also sponsor you to get a green card. So these are obviously highly coveted positions, and some employers, in order to kind of entice highly skilled workers, they will go ahead and say, if you take this job, I will not only get you to, obviously you have to have an H-1B visa to come work here, but I will, pretty much start at the same time. I'll start the green card process for you. And so that's a very, obviously, like I said, it's a very good deal for a person who comes here, because they're already highly skilled too. These are not jobs that are, the employer invests a lot of money into their employee, because the process for H-1B visa is costly. And when a person gets an H-1B visa, it's good for 3 years, and they can renew it for another 3 years. So it's valid for 6 years. So within that time, the idea is that they will come here, decide they like the U.S., and go ahead and go ahead and get a green card through their employer. Another way is asylum. So we have the first, family-based petition, the second is the H-1B visa, and the third is asylum. If So if a person comes here, an immigrant or a refugee, and they're being persecuted, this is something we talked a little bit about last week. You're being persecuted in your home country. You come to the United States, you can go ahead and file asylum. And The laws in the United States for asylum are very strict. You can't file asylum for just anything. There are 5 grounds that your asylum has to be under one of these 5 particular grounds, and they are so if you're saying you're being persecuted, the reason you're being persecuted has to be on one of these 5 reasons, and one of them is through political opinion, religion. If you're being persecuted because of your political opinion, if you're being persecuted because of your religion, if you're being persecuted because of your race. Another reason is you're being persecuted because of your nationality. And the 5th one is through your social group, right? So your particular social group is what they call it. Um, there are a lot of rules. You can't come here, say you want to do asylum, and you don't do like the application and the process. You have to start it within the first year that you enter here, enter into the United States. I was going to ask you, Renee, did you want to ask a question? I didn't know if you want.
Yes, I do. Let me put me back on the screen. I know that you mentioned with the family base, you said 21 years old.
Right.
So is it 21 or 18?
It's 21.
21? Okay. And then that's I just wanted to do the clarification of that. And then in regards to, because I was writing my notes when you were speaking. So in regards to the H1B visa, right? So
Mm-hmm.
you said it can be renewed 2 times, and that's for 3 years each time,
Yep.
correct?
Right.
And then so with that being said, then the employer will then go ahead and apply for the permanent resident
Right.
for the employee. And then so now then what would be the obligation for the employee, because the employer was the one who gave them permanent residence? So does that mean that they have to stay working for that employer maybe the rest of their lives? Or
Right.
how
No,
would that work?
no, that's a good question. Once, I mean, their reasoning, their basis is through their employment, right? So once they get their green card, no, they're free. They're free.
Okay, okay,
But
because
if the employer, So that becomes tricky. Like if they quit, right? That becomes a problem because your whole basis for getting the green card is because you're working because this employer is saying I'm sponsoring this person. If that goes away, then your basis goes away. So you don't really have a reason unless you get another employer to come pick it up and sponsor you. So it becomes complicated. So you can't be switching around.
Yeah.
You can't be switching around, and um I wouldn't advise it, and they would definitely need to seek out an attorney if that happens. I mean, it happens, but that's not like advisable, right? Like especially if an employer started the process for you, the green card process for you.
But we're talking about after they not doing the 2 3 I'm sorry, the 2 3 years visa, right? I'm talking about after the permanent residency.
Right. No, I'm talking
You
about during. So the thing is, the idea with the H-1B visa is like you're gonna come, but with the understanding of the way it's working nowadays is like I'm hiring you, but almost at the same time, I'm going to do your green card. You're not
okay?
waiting 6 years to do your green card,
Okay, okay,
right?
makes sense.
So yeah, because it's like because then they're like because they can switch jobs too, right? They can find another employer that's going to give them that same incentive because the idea is these are not just regular people; these are people who are very very skilled and probably sought after. So if I go to this company, then I'm sure this company will want me, and they're right. So yeah, so the idea is that they're applying for them. So, but once they get that green card, right, then they're fine. They can switch jobs. They don't need anybody to sponsor them, and they would have already been working for the company for a couple of years by the time everything is done anyway.
Okay, yeah, that makes sense. So for the asylum, you said there were 5 grounds. I only got 4. You said political opinion, religion, nationality, social group. I feel like I'm missing
Race,
one, and I'm not sure if my audience are missing that as well.
race. So it's
Race, yeah,
yeah,
okay.
yeah, political opinion, religion, race, sorry, nationality, and particular social group.
Awesome, awesome. Yeah, so basically, so this is 3 so far. You can go ahead and discuss the other 3. If
Okay.
anyone else have any question in the meantime, feel free to comment it. This is live in conversation with attorney Daphnée Camilien. Our goal is to come here and share information that's important to us and to our community. So if you know anybody who might find value from this conversation, go ahead and share it with them. And if you yourself have any question, go ahead and put it in my comment, in the comment, and it will be more than happy to answer it.
All
So you
right.
can do the tweet.
So number 4 would be the diversity visa program. And this is a program where every year the United States gives away 55,000 green cards to just 55,000, but the selection is random. So there are millions of people who apply for the lottery. Um, and there's a specified time frame when you can apply, but there are only 55,000 visas that are given away, and people can find that on that travel.state.gov website. They can find out the information. They can find out when they can apply. um, it's a lottery. It literally is a lottery, but you know try. The number 5 is the U visa, right? And so U visa is unique. The U visa is set aside for non-immigrants. It's basically U visa is a non-immigrant status. It's set aside for victims of certain crimes who have suffered mental or physical abuse and are helpful to law enforcement or government officials in the investigation or prosecution of any of the criminal activity. So basically, how a U visa works is let me first talk about the kind of criteria, the exact criteria. I'll say criteria. You have to be victim of a qualifying crime. It's not every crime, right? But and there's a list on USCIS.gov's website. So you can find out if it's if you're in this situation, if the crime, you've been a victim of, does qualify. And I would still tell you to talk to an attorney because there's always exceptions. So one, you have to be a victim of a qualifying crime. You have to have suffered substantial physical or mental abuse as a result of being a victim of the crime. You have to have information about the crime. If you're under the age of 16 or you're unable to provide the information because of a disability, a parent or a guardian, or any next of friend that has the information on your behalf can go ahead and do that on your behalf. You have to be helpful to law enforcement in the investigation or the prosecution of the crime. The crime has to have occurred in the United States, or it has to have violated the United States laws, right? And some of the crimes are, I'm just giving you, there's a much more crimes. I'm just giving you a couple. Some of them are rape, kidnapping, domestic violence, stalking, and there's many more other crimes. The one thing that's very interesting about a U visa is that, so this is not a situation, we talked about people, a family member applying for you. We've also talked about an employer applying for you. We've talked about people being a victim of, being persecuted in their country and they applying for themselves, getting asylum. The other thing is the U visa is, the person you're applying for yourself. So how it basically works is a crime is committed. Let's say, domestic violence is committed, and the person has to go to the police, file a police report, and follow through, right? If the police, if it's, they look at it, it's a crime, they arrest the perpetrator, they go to trial, if the prosecutor asks you to testify, you have to cooperate. You have to help out in the investigation. It doesn't mean the person has to, in order for you to get the U visa, to be found guilty, but you do have to do your part, because the police department or the state's attorney office are the ones who are going to fill out a form saying that you helped them out in the prosecution of a particular crime, and that is what is what you're gonna have and give when it comes to filing for your U visa. So that's really, really important. Another number, I think this is number 6,
Yes.
is something called VAWA, right? And this is another one where you self-petition. Oh, and I should say this. I'm sorry. I'll go back to the U visa, and then I want to say something about asylum, or the asylum. I did not say. The U visa. The really interesting and unique thing about this is once you get this U visa, right? So once USCIS grants you the U visa, it's after 3 years of having the U visa, a person can then go and apply for a green card, which is very unique status. And then asylum is another thing. Once you have asylum, you're granted asylum. After 1 year, a person who's granted asylum can then go ahead and file for their green card. So this was really, I missed that. I'm sorry to say that. And then we're going to talk about VAWA, which is the Violence Against Women Act, right? But for short, they call it VAWA, so VAWA. And under the federal law, Violence Against Women's Act, a person is eligible to get their green card if they were a victim of battery or some type of extreme cruelty that was committed by a U.S. citizen spouse or former spouse, a U.S. citizen parent, a U.S. citizen son or daughter, a lawful permanent resident spouse or former spouse, or a lawful permanent parent. So when I say lawful permanent, I mean a green card holder. So if you're married to a citizen or you're married to a green card holder and you've been evicted of battery or extreme cruelty, then you can go ahead and apply for. You can go ahead and try to self petition. Um, you can go ahead and self petition for a green card. You don't need the family member who abused you. You don't need their knowledge or their consent in order to apply. Um, and if you are approved for this VAWA status, you are going to go ahead at the same time and go ahead and you can be eligible to go ahead and get your own green card on your own. So it's another way that you're self-petitioning is through the VAWA. And this really was for um, people who may be in abusive situations. For example, let's say you did go ahead and get that, you got married to someone, is in another country and they come over to the US and they're married, and they start the immigration process with the spouse, but the spouse is abusive and the spouse doesn't want to finish the immigration process and uses that as a way to control them. It's just a lot of ways that we've seen this. This is something typical that they've seen. And so that spouse who's being abused doesn't need the US citizen person. This goes for also parents. It doesn't need and children, but they don't need that U.S. citizen person to go ahead and get their green card. They can file for VAWA, and there's another avenue to do it.
Oh wow, that's great info. I mean, I know a little bit about VAWA, but I didn't actually know that it was actually an act, and that it has a name. And so that's great info. But especially the U visa, I had no knowledge of the U visa. So, but I just wanted to ask you a little question regarding the U visa,
Yeah.
because I know last week we talked about how a permanent resident can lose the green card if they commit a crime, right? And then so how does that I mean, like, I don't want to say conflict, but then like what would be the difference between, now that you can get a visa because you help with maybe collaborate with having a crime be solved,
Hmm.
versus you actually commit the crime while you're a permanent resident, and then now you lose your permanent resident status. Does that make sense?
You mean like the same person?
No, like a different situation. So it's
Okay.
like a one case it's being for rewarded in a sense, but in the other case it's like even though you commit the crime, you do the time, but then you still lose your status.
Well, I think it's so because the reasoning behind the U visa is that they're trying to get so a lot of times people, immigrants in these communities, know of crimes. They know of stuff that's going on. They're victims of these crimes. They saw, for example, I mean, I didn't list all the crimes, but some of the crimes, one of the crimes is murder,
Mhm.
right? So if you have this person, let's say they're undocumented and they witness a murder, they're not going to talk. They're
Mhm.
not saying anything, right? They don't want to be killed, obviously, and they know that if they even say anything, they risk deportation as well. So, how do you get a person like that to help with law enforcement? And so the incentive is they want to get people to come out of the shadows and to help with law enforcement. And so this was more of an incentive to help. That's why there's a heavy emphasis on how did you help? How far did you go? Because it's one thing to say, I was a victim of a crime, but you don't file a police report. You didn't testify. The state's attorney, they're going to look at it, right? The state's attorney themselves can fill out the U visa, at least in Chicago, will fill out their portion of the application to say how you helped. If you helped in an extraordinary way, they'll say it, and that would help your case. Same thing. The police departments look at it. If they don't have your name in anything, then you can't, say it. So the motive behind that is to get people to come out of the shadows and to help law enforcement. So that's why and then the people who have it like a some type of status like a green card, and they commit a crime, um they consider like, they'll take your card, your because they'll take your green card, they'll take your status because they are going to say you lost your privilege to have these things. So yeah, I
Okay,
think
so
go ahead.
yeah, so just to clarify, on the in regards to you say U visa, right? On U visa,
Yeah, you like the
U, like the
you,
letter U.
yeah, like an actual you.
Okay, the letter U.
Yeah.
Okay, so on the U visa, you so basically, based on what I'm hearing, and you can definitely correct me if I'm wrong. It sounds like it's more for like somebody who witnessed a crime or somebody who's a victim of a crime, but not technically for the perpetrator of the crime.
Right, right.
Oh, okay.
It's
All
the
right. So that's what the confusion was.
oh yeah,
Okay.
yeah, yeah. It's the
So
victim
not
of
for the perpetrator, but just
you.
the victim or the witness.
Right.
Okay, yeah, makes sense. That makes total sense. Okay. Well, I'm just gonna say hello to everyone who's joining us now in live in conversation. For those of you who are just joining us, my name is Renee Antoine, and this is attorney Daphnée Camilien. I am an entrepreneur in the community, and we thought that it was important for us to share our knowledge, our expertise with our community so we can add value. So with that being said, last week we had a long conversation in regards to immigration, and then we're doing a part two right now. And then so Daphne had just mentioned 6 ways that a person can get the a green card, and one being family-based petition, H-1B1 visa, asylum, diversity, U visa, and as well as VAWA, which stand for Violence Against Women Act. Okay. And so Daphne, now I'm gonna ask you a little bit more about the asylum, right? How
Mhm.
easy or difficult would you say that it is for someone to get asylum?
Yeah. So asylum right now, it's never been really like easy, but asylum right now is extremely difficult to obtain. It's just there's so many laws have changed and so many there are a lot of barriers. So as of 2019, 69% of asylum cases were denied. Okay, so if so asylum is something that and it's difficult because people are the idea is that you're fleeing your home country, you're being persecuted, and you need to you need help, so you're coming to another country. So and you're desperate, but they're just not approving as many asylum cases as in the past. So that's something that people should understand when they do come here. Research is key if possible. But I understand it's usually like a desperate situation where it's not like a leisurely situation.
So I'm not sure if you will know the answer to that or not, but I know there's a lot of human rights organization, out there.
Mhm.
And then, so are you aware of maybe any organization that actually track those cases to see people who've applied for asylum and who were denied and who potentially, unfortunately, what they feared, happened to them? Okay. Are you aware of, like, is there any kind of, like, organization tracking that?
Like they feared like they'd be killed in their country and they went back to their country and were killed. You hear that all the time. I don't know off the top of my head um any organizations that are actively um there are lots of human rights organizations out there. They're actively like tracking that. I don't. But off the top of my head I don't. But it does happen. It does happen. Um yeah, it's a sad thing, but the laws are tightening and tightening more and more. So it's becoming really hard for people to get asylum.
I mean, that makes sense, because obviously, you said that it was due to political opinion, religion, race, nationality, social group. So there's always those type of issues going on throughout the world, and especially now, things are getting more violent, in every country. So a lot of people will potentially need asylum. Uh, so patriot, hey, something that I'm a Creole, patriote haïtien. This is the name of I guess, the Facebook page. I'm sure that's not the name of the individual. I guess you've just joined us. Welcome. And then so he asks, "What is the U visa?" Maybe he just joined us while I was doing the paraphrasing what you had mentioned. So maybe kind of go quickly over that again for me, please.
Yeah, so
And I'm
you
assuming him.
no, no problem. So U visa is a visa that people can get that are in the United States that have been victims of a crime. There are certain type of crimes, but you have to be if you are a victim of a crime and you have assisted law enforcement in the crime. How does that mean assisted? That means you filed a police report, or if you were a victim, or if you were, for example, substantially impacted by a crime that occurred in front of you. And this is morbid, but if you were a witness, for example, of a murder or some other gruesome crime, you testified in court regarding the crime, you can go ahead and try to file for a U visa and get a U visa. And once you have this special visa and it's approved, then at that time, after you've had it for 3 years, you can go ahead and apply for you can self petition. That means you yourself, you don't need anybody else, can go ahead and apply for a green card.
I mean, again, I've never heard of it. Uh, I've the idea of it, yes, but not exactly of it being called U visa. But with that being said, let's just say, and then this is just going into technical,
Yeah.
okay, because this is so interesting for me.
Hmm.
So, let's just say this person actually went ahead and they did the best they could with assisting with helping law enforcement, but then they were not approved for the U visa. Then what happened to them? Because now now are they like reported to ICE, and then now do they go to deportation process? Like what are the avenue?
Yeah, it all depends on what the situation was before. If they were undocumented, so it depends why they weren't approved. Was it a technicality? Is it something they have to fix? Was it just saying, hey, you know, let's say they said that they were a witness and to a crime, they never testified, there's nothing in their name, is not on a police report, there's no way to even prove that they were really involved. Maybe they had other people outside say, oh, they were there, but they didn't really assist law enforcement, so it was denied. If they were undocumented, while all this is pending, your status is pending, right? So while all this is pending, everything is like you're just kind of in limbo, but you're not going to be deported because it's pending. But once it's denied, it's like your status goes back to the status it was before. And if it was undocumented before, then you're undocumented. Does ICE come and get you the next day? No, that's not how things have been happening. But if you were undocumented, you're still undocumented. So then, are they aware of you? Yes.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly. And then just another follow up. So with during the pending situation, right? During the pending period, do they get employment privilege? Like they can go and apply for jobs. Can they work?
So this is the tricky situation, right? Um, no, they can't apply for jobs. So what happens is this: U visa right now is, I don't want to say the word popular, but a lot of people are utilizing that or applying for use visa. So the process of it is long. It's like over 3 years. So while you're waiting that 3 years, while you have an application waiting to find out, um, then you can't work. Once you are approved, you can work.
Okay.
Okay.
Because it's technically still a visa. That's what you're saying. Yeah, with visas you cannot work.
No, you can't. Well, it depends. So, right, like a visitor visa. No, you once you get the U visa, once you get the U visa, you can work. But when you're waiting to see if you're approved for the U visa, you can't work.
You cannot work. So there's
Now,
no temporary.
no,
Because I know like with the green card, sometimes they give you like a temporary work permit,
right,
but
but not
not with the U visa.
with other
Okay.
like asylum. While you're in the process of filing for asylum, you can work. You can work. A lot of family-based petitions, you can work. But U visa, no.
Okay.
Yeah.
Lots of great information, and I believe Patriot Aisen agree. He says, "Thanks for the information. Great job. Well, we appreciate you coming and joining us. Feel free to share it so more people can be knowledgeable. Like this is a lot of good information." I already shared Gregory at Italian says, "Good evening, everyone. Hello, Gregory. Thank you for always showing up and supporting us. And then a special shout out to Daphne. Your hair is beautiful. Yes, it is, madam. Looking fabulous.
Thank
Okay,
you.
so if anybody else have any question, feel free to comment with your question. Kindly share it. And if not, I have more questions for you because I think this is great information. So in regards to you said one of the other ways someone can have the green card is to the diversity program, which is a lottery that is, I guess, rewarded or giving to 55,000 people. Okay, so with the whole coronavirus dynamic right now, how does it impact or affect the diversity program?
Yeah, so it kind of the diversity program kind of halted. But last month, in September on September 4th, a court ordered it was a lawsuit and the court ordered because people were saying, they were suing for the diversity visas to resume. And there was the court ordered that the U.S. Department has to go ahead and try to make an effort to process the green card applications and to give people the green cards. So
Okay.
right now they're in the process of doing it for the places that can. So um, the idea is, there's consular processing. That means they're processing it not in the U.S., but they're processing it in these embassies and consulates all over the world. So if there's a country where their embassy and consulate is open, then and processing visas, then they have to go ahead and if you have people who want in that area, they have to go ahead and process them. If they're closed due to COVID, well, but they have to do what they have to do for the places that are open.
Okay. So So for the people who've won already, like the people who are open, do the best that they can to actually process it for them. But in what about the new lottery though? For people who have been applying that it has not been drawn yet, has there be a pause? Is there a pause on that right now?
No, the 2021 is the next one, right? That's coming up is still set.
It's still set.
That's still set to resume. Yeah.
And is there a fee to be part of the diversity program to apply for it?
No.
No, okay. And then once they get it, once they want to, there's no payment or nothing to be made.
Oh, I didn't say
Obviously, see
there's
that? Okay,
I didn't say that. There's medical exams. There's stuff that so you don't just get it and boom, you're here, right? There's a whole process that goes, but the initial application, no.
no, okay. All right. I mean, I had so many questions for you. It's already 8:52. uh, and okay. So boom, boom, boom. Anybody else, and if you have any questions, feel free to ask any question. And then, so my last question is in regard to the Violence Against Women Act. So it does says Violence Against Women Act. So what about for a man who may have witnessed a crime? Can they still apply for that as well, or is it just purely women?
So so VAWA, which is the
Yeah.
Violence Against Women's Act, so that's usually for the spouse or so like
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
yeah. So that's
Yes. Mm-hmm.
so right. So it's men can apply for that too. So U visa is the victim of the crime,
Yes.
and
Yes.
VAWA, right? VAWA can be a crime, but I mean domestic violence and all that stuff like that is a crime. But yes, it men can apply for VAWA. It's just the name, but men can apply.
Okay, that's
And
a
I
great clarification.
and I did want to say there are fees. I just wanted to clarify on my part. For the hold on, I just saw I was checking real quick about the fees. There are fees that are associated with the diversity visa fees. So there will be a fee.
Oh, there will be
Yeah, there are fees. Sorry about that. There are fees.
to apply.
Mhm.
Okay. All
But it,
right.
right.
I mean, it's a chance, So if you don't have anybody who can petition you, you take your chance, and it is what it is.
Now
That's
the thing is this though. If you pay, it doesn't mean that you're gonna get the visa.
Oh no, it's a lot of it. Just like when you buy a lot of a ticket, not everybody's gonna win.
Because there are millions of people that are doing this, but only 55,000 people that you know.
So now that you're talking about that, so million of people. So we're not even gonna talk about the exact fee, right?
Mhm.
So you million of people is applying for this, and only 55,000 get it.
Yes.
So in regards to the money that's being generated from this application, wouldn't it be enough to actually, I guess, hire people to process those applications?
Like with through the U.S. government, like U.S.
Yes.
I mean,
Yeah, you plead the fifth. That's the attorney coming out. The attorney is pleading the fifth.
but I don't know. They USCIS was saying they were going to lay people off, just like in that August. So if they didn't get money from because they don't have as much money anymore, they don't have as much applications for just general stuff that people are applying. So who knows? Who knows?
You're just gonna leave it right there. So we have a question from James in regard to the VAWA program. Um, so James asks, to apply for VAWA, are you supposed to have proof of violence?
Um, you have to have you do have to have some proof, right? What that constitutes, it depends, right? If it's domestic violence, it has to be it should be like a police report. If it's extreme cruelty, have you gone to see a counselor? Is there some type of are you getting help? Are you went to see a psychologist? You went to go see your pastor? It can't just be like you know, you can't just say something. There always has to be proof when it has to come to for anything with immigration. You always have to show proof. But yes, there has to be some level of proof with any of these things.
So some type of intervention that the person tried to take.
It is even if they so it's hard, right? So if it's like domestic violence and you were being abused and you weren't um so with VAWA it's interesting, right? Like if you have a potential to get a green card in your spouse's like because sometimes what they'll do is withhold your ability to get the green card, right? Like I'm not going to file for you because and use that as a way to control the person. Well, maybe there is no physical abuse, but that's mental abuse, right? And maybe the person doesn't realize that, so they leave. They don't have bruises, they didn't call the police, but if they went to go see someone, I would recommend if they walked in would be like, you need to go see like if they just left and they didn't know what to do, you were mentally abused because you were being held against your will, trying to, control you, with, hold dangling the green card, and whatever. So I would suggest that they go see someone, some type of psychiatrist, some type of psychologist. If they're in that type of situation, did they go see a pastor? If they're, you know, believe counseling that way. But yeah, there is a long way to answer your question. Is some type of proof needs to be established in some type of, better for the person, it would be in some type of documented way.
I mean, that makes total sense. With everything, I'm sure you can agree that there's uh maybe some exceptions, because
Right, right,
like a lot of time, if somebody's in a situation where they're being held against the wheel, they don't know the country, they don't have anybody, then absolutely, that can be a little tough. But
right.
then, like you said, but still there should be some type of intervention, that shows, this is what's actually happening. I think James was satisfied with your answer, and he says, thank you, I appreciate it. All right, well, we are at 8:59. It was a wonderful conversation. Thank you, all of you who joined us, who asked questions, who showed us some love. We appreciate it. This is live in conversation every Wednesdays at 8 p.m. My name is Winnie Antoine, with attorney Daphnée Camilien. And then so every week we have alternate subjects. So if you have any questions about anything, this is my son, the heart of my heart, my prince. So if there's any subject that you want us to go ahead and discuss, feel free to let us know. That's it for now. When Antoine signing out, one love. Daphnée, you want to add anything?
Oh, I was just going to say thank you for joining us, and we will see you next week at 8 p.m. for live in conversation.